Ancient Roman dodecahedron. No one knows what these were used for. They found over 100 of these. Dodecahedron means dodeca in ancient Greek.
Some mysteries are best left unsolved. The Roman dodecahedron is one of them. For generations, we've had theories, a tool, a toy, a religious relic. They're all wrong.
Any discovery of a Roman dodecahedron is remarkable and unusual, because there's not many more than 100 known to exist.
In a landmark and reportedly classified project, Google's Quantum AI was unleashed on this ancient enigma. It processed terabytes of data that no human could, and it found a terrifying connection between the object's unique geometry and the darkest rituals of the ancient world. The AI didn't just find an answer, it uncovered a warning about a forgotten technology that blurred the line between science and the supernatural, with horrifying results. The code in the machine. It began with a whisper of metal beneath the soil. In the summer of 2023, a quiet field in Norton Disney, England gave up a secret it had held for 17 centuries. A local archaeology group, armed with nothing more than passion and a metal detector, unearthed a flawless Roman dodecahedron. This wasn't just another find, it was perfect, stunningly preserved, and buried in a way that screamed intent. This discovery would normally be a slow burn, an academic curiosity. But believe it or not, this specific artifact became the final key for one of the most secretive research projects of our time. Deep within Google's AI division, a quantum computer had been tasked with solving the unsolvable dodecahedron mystery. But what it was about to reveal wasn't history, it was a warning. For years, the project was just a rumor whispered in tech and archaeology forums. Google, they said, was feeding its most powerful AI every scrap of data ever collected on these objects. High-resolution scans, metallurgical reports from over 100 known dodecahedra, geographical coordinates of each find, and even digitized texts of every known Roman historian. The AI's job was to see what humans couldn't, to find the pattern in the noise. The Norton Disney find was the missing piece. It was unearthed with incredible context. Shattered pottery, 3rd century coins, and the foundations of a collapsed Roman structure. It wasn't just an object, it was a crime scene. The AI immediately went to work processing the new data in seconds. The first revelation it spat out was a bombshell. The distribution of the dodecahedra wasn't random, nor did it simply follow trade routes. The AI mapped their locations and overlaid them with a staggering number of other data sets. The result? The objects appeared almost exclusively in regions known for fierce resistance to Roman rule, specifically areas with a deep history of Druidic and Celtic spiritual practices. There were almost none in Rome, Greece, or Egypt. They were a frontier phenomenon. The AI flagged this with a 99.7% probability of being intentional, not coincidental. They weren't Roman tools being used in the provinces, they were something else, thriving where Roman authority was weakest. Then, here's the kicker. The AI analyzed the metallurgy. The bronze alloy of the Norton Disney artifact and several others didn't perfectly match the standard Roman military-industrial complex formula. Instead, it was closer to pre-Roman Celtic foundry techniques. This suggested the objects weren't just used by locals, they were likely made by them, using their own traditions, right under the noses of the empire. But the most chilling discovery came from the geometry. Each dodecahedron has 12 flat pentagonal faces, each with a hole of a different size and small knobs at every corner. For years, people argued they were for measuring distance or maybe even knitting gloves. The AI dismissed these theories in microseconds. Using the precise measurements from the 3D scans, it ran billions of simulations. The result was mind-bending. The AI demonstrated that if you shined a light source through the holes at specific times of the year, like the winter solstice, the light would align perfectly to create complex patterns. It was a celestial calendar, but not a Roman one. The dates it marked were aligned with ancient Celtic feast days, Samhain, Imbolc, and Beltane. These weren't just dates on a calendar. They were days believed to hold immense spiritual power when the veil between our world and the next was at its thinnest. The dodecahedron wasn't just telling time, it was marking sacred time. The object was a defiance cast in bronze, a map to a spiritual world Rome tried to conquer. But this was only the beginning. The AI's next discovery would shift from the celestial to the visceral, revealing what these objects were truly for. And it had nothing to do with starlight. A ritual in the shadows. If these objects were just calendars, why bury them in graves? Why hide them in riverbeds or seal them inside the walls of buildings? The placement of the dodecahedron never made sense for a practical tool. One was found in Belgium, deliberately placed in the middle of a river, a classic site for votive offerings. Others were found nestled next to the bones of the dead in Gaul and Britain, placed over the heart or head of the deceased. These weren't lost items, they were companions for the dead on their journey to the afterlife. The Google AI cross-referenced every find spot with geological, historical, and even folkloric data. The conclusion was inescapable. Over 80% of the dodecahedra were discovered in locations with clear, undeniable ritualistic significance. The AI flagged a find near a Roman bathhouse, where the object was buried beneath the floor next to a series of offering bowls. Another was found under the foundation of a theater, a place of myth and performance. Here's the thing. These weren't accidents. The AI's analysis of the archaeological layers showed they were placed there intentionally, as if to sanctify the ground or protect the structure with a power that wasn't Roman. It was a hidden spiritual architecture operating in the shadows of the empire. This led to a stunning theory from the machine. The dodecahedra were active ritual devices. To test this, researchers, guided by the AI simulations, created perfect replicas. They discovered something incredible. When wind or breath passes through the different-sized holes, it creates an eerie, low-frequency hum. The AI analyzed the acoustic signature and found it matched resonant frequencies recorded in natural sacred groves and ancient stone chambers, places where sound was thought to amplify spiritual energy. Some have quietly suggested that these sounds were used in ceremonies to mimic the voices of spirits or gods, inducing a trance-like state in participants. It wasn't just an object to be looked at, it was an instrument to be used, to channel sound and focus intent. The most disturbing pattern the AI found was the link to hoards of treasure. In several cases, a dodecahedron was found buried alongside a cache of Roman coins. Was it just another valuable? The AI argued no. It analyzed the context and suggested the dodecahedron was acting as the spiritual guardian of the wealth, a talisman to protect it. In ancient folklore, such objects weren't just good luck charms, they were contracts. Placing one with your treasure bound it with a spiritual power, and anyone who dared to steal it would face a curse. It was a form of supernatural security system. This was the terrifying truth beginning to surface. The dodecahedron wasn't a passive object of a forgotten faith. It was a piece of active spiritual technology designed to channel energy, communicate with unseen forces, and enforce otherworldly contracts. And as the AI dug deeper into the chemical analysis of what was left inside these hollow objects, it uncovered a truth so grim it threatened to reframe the entire mystery from one of ritual to one of outright horror. The ghost in the bronze. While the geometry pointed to the sky, the hollow interior of the dodecahedron held a much darker secret. Speculation about what these objects were used for had always been rampant, but the true breakthrough came from a place no one expected: the microscopic residue left inside. In a joint project between Oxford and Google's AI team, researchers used advanced mass spectrometry to analyze the inner chambers of the best-preserved artifacts, including the pristine Norton-Disney dodecahedron. They were looking for trace elements, molecular ghosts left over from ancient rituals. The AI's role was to sort through the complex chemical data and find patterns. The patterns it found were horrifying. The first reports, leaked from an internal memo, were explosive. Inside multiple dodecahedra, the AI identified undeniable traces of burned organic material. Specifically, it found hemoglobin residue consistent with animal blood alongside charred particles of bone. But that wasn't all. It also detected the chemical signatures of lavender and thyme ash. These weren't random plants. In both Roman and Celtic traditions, lavender and thyme were sacred herbs used in funerary rites to ward off evil spirits and purify the dead. Someone wasn't just burning things inside the dodecahedra, they were performing a specific, powerful ritual involving blood and protective herbs. Then came the second wave of analysis. Some artifacts contained traces of complex resin compounds associated with ancient embalming practices. These were the formulas used to prepare the dead for their journey, suggesting the dodecahedra were not just present at funerals, but were active participants in rites of death and preservation. But the Norton-Disney find held the most shocking secret. CT scans, analyzed by the AI for density and composition, revealed microscopic layers of soot and melted sap inside. Suspended within this matrix were tiny fragments of calcium phosphate. The chemical signature wasn't just bone, it was specifically identified as burned human bone. The chatter among the few researchers aware of this was immediate and panicked. This wasn't a tool. This wasn't a calendar. This was a container, a ritual vessel that was involved in ceremonies where human remains were burned. The AI then made one final terrifying connection. It cross-referenced this physical evidence with a deep language scan of a forgotten manuscript from a French monastery, the Codex Mistra. The text spoke of a divine sphere, a bronze object with 12 pierced faces used by a secret sect to hear the voices of the stone sleepers, a term believed to refer to the dead. The manuscript warned, "Let none awaken the sphere save those prepared to bear its echo." The AI concluded with over 98% certainty that the divine sphere and the Roman dodecahedron were the same object. It wasn't just a calendar or a noisemaker, it was a communication device, a machine for talking to the dead. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place, revealing a truth not just about a mysterious object, but about a spiritual war fought in the shadows of the world's greatest empire, a rebellion in secret. The final output from the Google Quantum AI project was not a simple report. It was a new history, a terrifying narrative that explained everything: the strange distribution, the lack of Roman records, the celestial alignments, and the horrifying residues found inside. The Roman dodecahedron, the AI concluded, was not Roman at all. It was a central artifact of a suppressed pre-Roman spiritual tradition, a quiet rebellion cast in bronze. Before Rome, the Celtic and Gallic people had a deep connection to the natural world. Their priests, the Druids, performed complex rituals tied to the seasons, the stars, and the earth. To them, geometry was magic, and symbols held power. When Rome conquered these lands, it didn't just defeat their armies, it tried to erase their culture. Roman law cracked down on what it called superstitio, any unauthorized religious practice. Druids were declared enemies of the state, their sacred groves were cut down, and their rituals were outlawed. But you can't kill a belief that easily. The AI's analysis suggests that the dodecahedron became a symbol of this cultural survival. It was a sacred object that could be made and used in secret. Its complex geometry encoded their forbidden knowledge of the cosmos. Its ritual use connected them to their ancestors and their gods, a lifeline to a past Rome was trying to sever. This is why they are only found on the fringes of the empire, in places where the old ways still held sway. This is why no Roman ever wrote about them. Mentioning them, even to condemn them, would be to acknowledge their existence and their power. It was easier for Rome to enforce a kind of archaeological censorship, a bureaucratic silence that buried the objects in the historical record. The AI's most chilling conclusion was about its ultimate purpose. It wasn't just for honoring the dead, it was for using them. It was a necromantic tool, a piece of spiritual technology designed to channel the power of ancestors. By burning remains and sacred herbs within its geometric field and chanting at specific frequencies, the user could awaken the stone sleepers and gain knowledge or power from the spirit world. This was the terrifying truth. The dodecahedron represents a form of ancient technology based not on gears and levers, but on harmony with light, sound, and life force. A power the ruthlessly pragmatic Romans could neither understand nor control, and therefore deeply feared. Every dodecahedron found isn't just an artifact. It's a surviving ember of a fire Rome tried and failed to extinguish. The past is never truly dead. Was the dodecahedron a dangerous tool of forbidden magic or a sacred relic of a lost culture? The line may be blurrier than we think. Like and subscribe for more secrets hidden in history.